Welcome back to Fast Market here on the TD Ameritrade Network. We got our hashtag segment coming up here, so let's bring in Andy Swan. He's a co-founder at LikeFolio. Welcome back to the show, Andy. All right, hey, Andy, we're talking more retail, and look at ROST stores, relatively flat, down about 1% this year, up about 23-24% over the last 12 months. But if you look at TJX, which is one of their big competitors, got a nice pop post earnings. Going into this report, what kind of data are you guys seeing out of ROST stores?
Yeah, I think that comparison is a really good one. You know, TJ Maxx really handily beat estimates. Year over year, they were up 8% in sales, 23% in profits, giving the stock a nice boost, like you said. And so as we go into ROST stores, we want to know, are they on a similar trajectory to TJ Maxx? And I would say in some regards they are, and in others they aren't. We're seeing ROST stores, in terms of consumer demand, we're seeing a really nice uptick here recently. We think that they're benefiting really nicely from the back to school movement this fall, and that could bode really well as customers, get used to back to school shopping. They get used to going into these stores, and then naturally the holiday shopping season comes around and they follow those same patterns. So when you see that back to school shopping, sending people in larger numbers to a store like ROST stores is this year than it was last year, I think that's a really good signal. On the other hand, when we look at ROST versus competitors in terms of consumer happiness, we get the opposite picture. So I think they're getting more people in the door, but it looks like they're satisfying those customers less. When you look at the happiness levels versus TJ Maxx or Burlington, it just doesn't hold up. And so I think it's a little bit of a mixed bag. I think that the company will come across and have a pretty good earnings report. Same store sales should be good. But what worries me, and I think that their outlook will be good because of what we're seeing in the back to school season. I think that'll give them optimism going into the holiday season. But what worries me is that level of disappointment from consumers when they do go into the door and losing ground to competitors like TJ Maxx. So I think, going into earnings overall, we're pretty neutral. If anything, I think we could see a similar reaction that TJ Maxx got to the upside, but long term, starting to get concerned with the experience that they're delivering to customers.
Andy, the comps with TJX are pretty resounding when you look at these stores. But the happiness, could it be? I read a couple articles on ROST stores this morning, and one of the articles really talked about they have a very conservative presentation scheme, which means their stores aren't real fancy. They don't have expensive lighting. They keep it really low budget, which allows them purchasing power and the ability to offer their products, at consistently low levels. Their comp stores have looked really healthy lately. Could that be, though, showing up in the happiness level, that their stores just aren't as pretty as like TJX or some of the others?
Yeah, I think they've kind of over-delivered in the underwhelming department in terms of the consumer experience. You walk in there, and unlike a TJ Maxx, I think you're right, unlike a TJ Maxx, you walk into a ROST stores and it feels discount, where I think the magic blend for companies like this is to make the experience feel high-end until you look at the price tag. And TJ Maxx, I think, is delivering on that a lot better than ROST stores. So I think, as ROST starts to expand, I think they're adding significantly more locations over the next year or two. It'll be interesting to see if they prioritize that, kind of physical aesthetic experience in the stores. And then if they learn something from that, which I think they definitely should, given our data, can they walk that back into the existing stores? Hopefully they can, but right now we don't see any indication of that happening from a consumer happiness perspective.
Yeah, Andy, I got a couple questions here for you. The first one being, you're hearing all the inventory issues that a lot of other retailers have had. Is that benefiting ROST at this point? And this is all, and the moves in ROST stores, is it all going to be based on foot traffic? Because it seems like, I understand they're trying to ramp up their e-commerce just like TJ Maxx is, but these are the stores that you go to and you have to have foot traffic. And are you seeing positive signs on that front?
Yeah, I think, the digital ambitions are worthy, but I think ultimately with these stores, it's about people walking into the store, seeing and feeling the item, and then deciding to buy, because that's the whole kind of discount shopper experience. It's really tough to replicate online. We saw the same out of Five Below. They tried to move to more digital and had some success with it, but ultimately it's about what happens in the stores. And what we're seeing is that the stores are doing very well. People are talking about walking into these ROST stores at a pace that I think is definitely surprising to us, especially for back to school. So I think they'll have a positive message for this report and a positive outlook.
So according to your data, you guys are relatively neutral on the stock going into the earnings report. Are you guys neutral, like where you'd buy it on any dip, or do you think maybe we're going to see another TJX reaction?
Yeah, this is one I think long term we just stay away from and say, I'd like to see you deliver on some of these consumer experience promises that you're making. You got a new CEO coming in, I think, in a couple of years, so they have a big transition underway. Right now, just like TJ Maxx, quite a bit better.
All right, great stuff, great data as always, Andy. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, that's Andy Swan, co-founder at LikeFolio, breaking down the data for us here on ROST stores ahead of earnings. And now, Kev, and have you break down a couple example trades here in ROST stores that you brought us. Go ahead.